So let's continue with a few definitions. One thing is certain is that there are many ways business thinkers use the concept of business model, define it, and it can sometimes be slightly confusing. Although it's not complex, you will see different definition. And here, for example, I've put 3 definitions from Peter Drucker, John Margareta, Alex Osterwalder, 3 business gurus, very well known, and they don't really describe the same thing. So here in the class, we'll try to have our own definition, but knows that it's sometimes a bit confusing, although it's relatively simple. So if we want to have a simple definition, well, think just that a business model is how a business makes money. It's really the underlying economic logic that explains how a business can deliver value to its customer at an appropriate cost. So that would be the definition. And it's important to keep in mind that business model is not strategy. Strategy is something much broader, much more complex. And of course, here we have six classes talking about strategy. So business model is just a part of it. And in the traditional pyramid, you start with the vision of a company on top. Then you talk about strategy. Then you have the business model, and then you have really the tactics in the operational strategy. So if you read on the right, that's really what I've said. It's the key question is how are we going to make money? And obviously there are a lot of different ways of getting revenue and of managing cost. It seems trivial said like that, but that's what we're going to see later on. And a good business model framework will help you exploring this relationship. So it's really a description of how your business runs, and it explores the relationship between your revenue and your cost. Strategy, as I said, it's much broader. It's a more complicated question. So it's really not how you can make money right now, but how you can make money and more money than your rivals. So meaning how you can generate superior returns over time and how you can sustain the advantage over time. So strategy is really about building sustainable competitive advantage. So strategy does not look at the revenue and the cost, but at the relatively price and the relative cost and the willingness to pay of customer. So that's a broader topic. So let's keep our basic definition of business model. You keep in mind that's how a business generates money. And if we go a bit further, according to me, a business model needs to answer 3 questions. The first one is value creation. What is offered to what customer segment? The second one is a value configuration. How is your business structured in terms of resources and processes? And the third one is value capture. How is the profit made? And so if you combine that, on the right, you see a definition. A business model describes a value proposition for customer and other participants, an arrangement of activities that produce this value and associated revenue and cost structure. So it's a smarter and more articulated way to expand on the initial definition on how, which was how a business makes money. And then you can go one step further around those 3 blocks of value creation, value configuration, and value capture, and think about the different sub-constituents. That's well explained in the article, the Harvard Business School article of Christensen, so I really recommend you to read that one. Sorry, I was stuck. And so I recommend you to read that one. But the framework that we will use in the class is the famous business model canvas that was defined by Osterwalder and Pinger, that really help you to structure and to think about the business model of a company around 9 building blocks that show the logic of how a company intends to make money. So I will not read all the block, and I think you've seen that in some other classes. But that's really interesting, and it's a concise, straightforward way to think about the business model. But also, if you're an entrepreneur and you want one day to launch your business, which I would definitely encourage you to do, and I hope there are a lot of future entrepreneurs that are listening to me now. But it's a good way, just to brainstorm with with your business partners or with some friends about your business model and think about, okay, what's my value proposition? What are the customer I will address? What are who are the partners that I need to work with? That's a really good framework, a simple one, but that enables you to think about the business model. And so to use it, you have the definition, but you have also all those different questions. Again, I will not read through them in extenso, but that's really a good guide for you to think about a business model. And you will see in the links, I have also a video of Osterwalder himself explaining his framework, so he will obviously do it also very, very well. So I encourage you to read it. So that's for the definition. So we have seen the definition. We have agreed that we will use the business model canvas. Now, there are some patterns, some common types of business model that you will find often, and that I would like, again, just to define and to list. Again, I think you know them, and most of them you know them intuitively, but it's good to have them in mind. And again, the day you want to launch a business, maybe think about, which type of business model do I intend to have. So the first one is the add-on. The add-on, it means that the core offering is priced relatively competitively, so relatively cheaply, but then you have a lot of extra that drives the final price up. In the end, the customer pays more than he or she initially assumed. A very good example, obviously, is Ryanair. You think you have a very cheap ticket, but then if you're factoring the fact that you need to pay just to pay by credit card, to reserve a seat, to have luggage, and then that you are very far away from the city and that you need to take one bus or one train. So in total, sometimes it's even more expensive. So that's one. The freemium, obviously, the basic version is for free. And then if you want more, you need to pay a membership or a fee. So LinkedIn, for example, if you want to have a premium access, SurveyMonkey, if you want to do Monkey more complicated, WooClap, if you want to ask more questions. So it's really common with app and with business model online. I have to say, what is at the moment during the lockdown very, very popular, those are the fitness app. So you have the basic version that's free, and then if you want to have the full exercises, you need to pay. So that's really the freemium model, well known as well. The lock-in. By lock-in, it means that when you have start using the services or the products of a company, it's very hard to switch and to change it because there are substantial switching costs. A very good example is probably Microsoft. Once you start using the suite of softwares, it's not always easy to go to another solution and to pay more. And that's also why we're trying to push for more competition, but this sometimes has a cost, and for user that's not easy. Salesforce, that's a very famous CRM for companies. Well, if you have it, you will probably not start using a second one. The long tail, those are companies that instead of focusing on a few blockbusters, so a few products that generate the bulk of the revenue, will also focus on a lot of other specific products that will not be sold to many people, but with a high margin. One example, but actually it didn't really succeed, was Lego Designed by Me. So the idea was that people can design their own Lego, offer them, and so the margin were quite high for Lego at that time. So if we continue, second page, the paper use. Okay, I don't need to use it. It's the best example. It's probably with car sharing or bike sharing at the moment. Mass customization. Those are companies that can actually produce their product with the same efficiency as mass production, but with a touch of customization. So that's why you have the mass customization. M&Ms, for example, if you go on their website, you can customize your M&Ms. You receive the pack, and for them it's not a lot of additional cost, but for you pay. I can tell you pay much more. I think Nike, Adidas, you can customize your sneakers as well. Again, for them, they are now really efficient in their production technology. So for them, it's not a lot of extra cost. They're still as efficient, but for you, it will cost much more. Razor and blade, you know it by heart. This one lets you read the definition, but the basic product is relatively cheap, but then you pay a lot for the extension and to continue using it. That's the Nespresso machine that is not super expensive, but then the Nespresso capsule are super expensive. That's the razor, obviously Gillette, HP. The printer is not that expensive. The ink is, so you know it. The second one is the reverse razor and blades, where actually the consumables are sold at low margin and durables at high margin. So the Kindle, well, I'm not sure that's still the perfect example that it used to be, but the Kindle, the books are cheaper, but the Kindle is more expensive. But now it's not that true anymore, and the prices of the books have increased. So I have to say I'm a fan. Because I read a lot and it takes less space, but the price difference between a normal book and an electronic book today is not that big. And then you have the two-sided network. That's the platform. I will not explain it here now because it will be the focus on the next section, because it's a very important type of business model that is today everywhere, and most of the successful companies today use the platform business model. So it's important that we spend time on it. Again, it's very intuitive. All those companies, but it's interesting and important to think about exactly the specificity of their business model. So that's two-sided network or platform, and that will be the focus of the next video. Thank you.